Welcome to Dakota Starry Nights Workshop. Well, we're out here in a Category 3 dark site. Sun's going down. Got the Black Hills behind me and Old Soul over there heading down towards the horizon. Earlier today, I took delivery on a Vixen VMC200L. It is a modified mock Cassegrain, and the idea for this setup here, this is a Twilight 2 Explorer Scientific mount, and here I have a TMB 92SS triplet with a 3-inch feather touch focuser for a wide field. This is f5.5, so I have about a 505 millimeters of focal length here, and a 13 millimeter 100 degree teleview ethos. Over here on the Vixen, the focal length on that is 1950, operating, I believe it's at f9.75, and I have a teleview 10 millimeter Delos. And so that magnification there is going to be just a shade under 200. And over here with this 13 millimeter ethos, this will be right around, I believe, 75 or 72. And so the idea is to have a wide field and a long focal length platform all in one. Now this Twilight handles this pretty easily, and I have a tablet here hooked on here so I can see what the sky is. I've made a handle for this TMB. It goes right on this Los Mandi plate, and on this side there is a Vixen plate that I use to mount my guide scope. I primarily use this refractor for astrophotography. It is just wonderful. You put a power mate in there, deuce it up or quad it up with a 4-power mate. Really great. Wide field, middle about 1,000, and then you can go to 2024 with a 4X power mate. So now what I want to do here is, with this setup, a guy can just get right here like this, and I mean this is about as good as I think it's gonna get. So you can check it out here and then come over here and check it out here, so you get the best of both worlds, right? I mean, hey, you know, you gotta love it. Earlier today I dialed these red finders in so that they're synchronized, and it was relatively pretty easy. It's already balanced. I have a counterweight up at the top. So let's go back to the shop and take a look at that unboxing that I did, and we can cover some of the aspects of this VMC200L. Well, this is made in Japan. Comes with a 5-year warranty. It is 200 millimeters of aperture, or 8 inches. It has a focal length of 1950 millimeters, and it's rated as an f9.75, and the limiting stellar magnitude is 13.3. It's fully multi-coated. Now there's another model that's similar to this. They make a VC200L, and the main difference between that one and this one is the VC200L is an f9 with a focal length about 1800 millimeters, and it is a spherical mirror reflector with corrective optics between the secondary reflector and the focus assembly. Whereas this one, it is sort of a modified mock. It's a catadioptric optical system. It incorporates a primary mirror and a meniscus corrector just before a secondary mirror. And by doing this, the light is corrected twice. You get a nice flat field. It eliminates spherical aberration and field curvature. Supposedly this is corrected to a high degree. This also doesn't have a corrector plate in the front, which is nice because it means for a quicker cool down time, and there's no possibility of the corrector plate doing. It's also really, really light. When this package arrived, I couldn't believe how light it was. I mean, it's just like nothing. There's nothing to it. It's like 13 pounds, so you could put it on a Alt-Az mount. I have intentions of putting it on a Twilight mount, Twilight 2 mount, and I might image with it, but right now, for starting off with, I really want to use this with a TMB triplet, 92SS for wide field on one side of the Twilight mount, and the VMC200 on the other side for a longer focal length for reaching deep planetary imaging. And the fit and finish on this, from what I could see, is just excellent. It really, really is. It's excellent. Now, one of the reasons why I chose this over a Celestron Edge, there's a couple of reasons actually. And it's one of the things that you run into when you buy these Cassegrains. It's kind of like a crapshoot. Some of them are okay, some of them are better than okay, some of them are mushy, you know, meaning that you don't really get a nice pop, a nice crisp focus. And so I wanted to go with the Vixen because I was hoping that the Japanese optics would be better. It's like the Edge in terms of that it has a flat feel. So if you want to image with it, you can. The other thing is this mirror, the primary, does not move. Okay, so there's no image shift whatsoever. It's stationary. And here's the rack and pinion focuser, and it's 2-inch. The action on this feels really nice. You know, so that gets away from moving the primary. From what I heard, it really snaps to focus. Like there's no question. I've used scats in the past, and some of them it's just mushy and soft, and you never really know. It's hard to tell when you're in focus or not. So here's a handle, and there's a 1/4-inch accessory screw here if you want to put a guide scope or a camera or whatever, and then it has the dovetail here, which I already have a red dot for that, so that's going to fit great. Now, originally I had read that they were just screws without the brass band on the inside, and guys were complaining that there was marring up their diagonals and eyepieces. So that's great that they've changed that, and they've actually put in a brass ring in there. Take this off. Yeah, there it is. Now that is super, super dark in there. I mean, really flat, that paint. Some guys have complained about the spider here being too thick, but you know what? I'm going to leave it. I know some guys have ground that down. However, it is really substantial, and personally, I like that. That means it's going to hold collimation. It being open, it's going to cool down a lot quicker. So I've made a system to help cool this down even quicker. This is a Schedule 40 1.25" PVC fitting that I'm going to use to speed up the cooling. Now I understand it only takes about 30 minutes, but it's important it's completely at ambient temperature so that you can get high magnification without having tube currents and what have you. One of the problems with the Edge and the closed systems, they sometimes take a while and you can't get that crisp focus, which is why I wanted to go with this. Going back to this, these are fine stainless steel screens that I had removed from a shower head water filter. I took it apart and it comes with these screens. So my intention is to put this right in here like that. So the air will come in through here, and on this end I'll have a fan on a cover that I'll make and pull the air from the back end filtered up through the front and cool this tube probably down in less than 15 minutes. And so back here is where the air is coming through. I could feel it too. This fan is quite a bit more substantial than what you would normally have on the Edge. On the Edge, those Tempest fans are these two little fans, but this is probably a good 10 times that power. The air is being filtered, going right out that end, cooling this whole tube down to where we get the primary and the secondary and the tube in itself all drop down to ambient. Pretty cool. Boy, I tell you what, if it performs as good as it looks, it's going to be a real winner. I have the Vixen mounted on the G11. I'm going to give it a whirl, see what it does for imaging. Last night wasn't too bad at all. The seeing wasn't great and the transparency was below average. But even with all of that, I was able to see some nice concentric circles at 150 power. I was kind of pushing it. but it was, you could see that, you know, the atmosphere was a little more settled down, that there was a lot of potential there in the optics. It was really, really promising. So I was pleased with the results, but to really push it to the limit, I'm going to need better seeing. But so far the optics seem to be a little bit above average what you would get with a normal scat. But we still need some more tests. So tonight's going to be for a little bit of imaging and narrowband hydrogen alpha. We'll see what we can pull out here. It's a little bit better. The seeing is good. The transparency is average, and it's a clear sky. So we should get some pretty good results, unlike the other night, which was strictly visual, first light. You know, I usually don't expect much. But I liked what I saw. It was a lot of fun using the two focal lengths together on the Twilight 2. Actually a really lot of fun, and having the TMB triplet gave me a wider field of view, so when I was looking for targets you could find them because you could see the star fields, and that was kind of neat. It made for acquisition a lot quicker, and despite the moon being up, it was still pretty easy going in terms of it. So let's wait for a little bit more. It's going to get dark and we'll try to pull something down. I haven't decided on a target. It doesn't really matter as long as it's something hydrogen alpha, close to zenith or thereabouts, so we can see with the optics, and then I'll tag them along this video. All right. Okay, so there's a couple of things I noticed straight away, and that is the focuser for the 2-inch. These screws are really small. They're hard to get a hold of, and also because the compression ring is so close to the edge, I had the same problem with the Explorer Scientific Ultra Lightweight. They put that compression ring so close to the edge, and then you have that undercut. What happens is that it grabs just a little part of the undercut, and it's unable to compress the full part in between. So what I did was I put these two rubber O-rings to space it past that cut, so that this compression ring, which is right on the edge here, can engage the groove completely. And this is not the only focuser that I've had problems with that. I wish they would redesign that, at least give this a little more room here so that there's that space so that the compression ring can go right inside the groove rather than half on the groove and half off the groove. So you have two screws here essentially, and then they're so small that I had to really take a needle nose pliers, which I really don't like doing, but I was very carefully snugged them down because you can't really get a good grip with your fingers. So that's one thing. The other thing, on the Vixen dovetail, there's a little set screw here that holds this chrome plate. What that prevents you from doing is sliding the OTA up a little more in order to get a little better counterbalance in declination, and you're limited there with that. It also affects you up here. You're not unable to really straddle this set screw, so I had to put this declination counterweight right on the edge there. It fit, so that was good, but those set screws are kind of a problem when you want to slide the OTA to balance it out in deck. So those two things you want to keep in mind. I mounted a Vixen plate here on top that I had, and there is a 1/4-inch threaded tap here on the handle, and so I ran a 1/4-inch screw on from the top of the Vixen plate down into the handle. That seemed to work pretty good. It doesn't really give you much room for adjusting for weight. I suppose a guy could put another tap here on the handle and then put a longer Vixen dovetail and slide that all the way up to kind of offset the weight. And I just might do that, but for now, just to run these tests, I thought that was good enough. Okay, so during the evening I showed how this screw right here, as well as on the other end where the focuser is, prevents you from sliding the OTA either forward or backward past the screw. So in other words, if you wanted to come slide further up this way, back towards the focuser, this will not allow you to do that, which it really isn't a problem, because you can remove the Allen head screw and the plate, and therefore it won't interfere with the OTA clamping onto your saddle. Now, because this Vixen doesn't have a corrector plate, and so by the time you put your camera back here and your guide scope up here, you've got a lot of weight hanging back here. Fortunately and wisely, Vixen has put 2 1/4-inch taps underneath the Vixen dovetail plate. So that allows you to take a Los Mandy plate and attach it to underneath the Vixen plate, and now with this size dovetail plate you have this much more, about 4 more inches, to where you can go back to bring this forward in order to offset the weight of the camera. Now that's really nice. That was really smart thinking, and I really appreciate that kind of engineering. Okay, as I stated earlier, one of the issues I was running through was these small screws that they have here to tighten up the 2-inch focuser. Here it is right here, and you can see it's real difficult to get your fingers on. But more importantly, it doesn't secure the weight of a camera or a heavy 2-inch eyepiece to my satisfaction. And another curiosity that I've found is that this comes with just 2 of these thumb screws, one here and one here. Yet over here on this side there is a set screw that fills the hole that appears to normally would take a thumb screw, but they didn't include it. Even though this is tapped out to receive 3 thumb screws symmetrically, they only give you 2, one here and on this side, and then they fill this one that's here with an Allen head screw. It takes a 9/64 Allen wrench to get inside that hole, and you need to clean the hole out because there appeared to be some Loctite inside the hole that was preventing the Allen key from going in there. The other thing I did was, these screws, they are hard to get your finger around, so I went through my bolt box and found these that fit right in there. These are real nice, and you can see they're bigger, so you can really get a good grip on them. Last night when I was imaging, I was actually using a pair of pliers to tighten these little things down, and man, that ain't good, you know that. So these are much better. You might have to get a trip to the hardware store, but I happen to have these laying around. Last night was the second night I was out, and it was beautiful. This thing was tracking better than I've ever seen the G11 track with an 8-inch scat on it, and I believe it's due to the lightness of this and not having a corrector plate in the front. And if you put that Los Mandy plate in the back, it gives you plenty of room to move it to balance your deck without having to have a deck counterweight on the front. So eliminating that deck counterweight, lighten it back up to its native like 13 pounds or something like that weight. Of course, you know, you have to add the camera in that, but the OTA was really light. It was tracking incredibly well. I was really impressed with it. The other thing is the cool down time on the OTA really is quite a bit faster. Issues that some people mention about the bright stars and the diffraction rings, I really haven't found that to be an issue. Not really. I mean, if you go to Vega, sure, it's going to be bright, but I'm really happy with this OTA. I believe this is a keeper. I had an Edge, but I got to tell you, I had issues with it, tracking mainly, and I really like the optics on this. It is flat like the Edge, but it's a lot lighter, and I just believe that the optics are a little bit better quality on this. I mean, that's just my personal experience. Not that the Edge isn't a good OTA, it's a real good OTA because it does shoot a flat field, but my sample wasn't as sharp as I would have liked it, whereas this appears to be much sharper. So right now I'm in Ursa Major, and we're doing M101, the pinwheel. The guiding looks pretty good. I got a total of 1.01. and I'm using a 50mm guide scope, as you saw on the handle. I did the M13 in Hercules, the globular cluster. Really nice, tight stars. It's holding collimation pretty well. Actually, I haven't even collimated it. Came from the factory collimated, and it's tested out pretty good. I read online where some guys were saying you have to collimate it every night and that sort of thing, but I haven't found that to be true at all. Also, it seems to hold focus pretty well, and I didn't really see any big star diffraction spikes except on the brightest star like Vega. Just downloaded. So when I did M13, it looked fine. I didn't really see a bunch of spikes, so I'm not so sure what that's all about. Let's see what we got. So there it is. That's a 5-minute bend 2x2 of the pinwheel, and it's at 100% there, using a Santa Barbara camera. Now I just kind of threw this in there. I haven't really tried to work out the guiding real well or nothing, because I just wanted to see what the image would do. But you can see I got a little bit kind of like football stars right here and right here. So that's in right ascension. So right ascension needs to be dialed in. But like I say, this is first light. I didn't want to get real crazy tonight with it. I just wanted to see what it would do and what kind of framing. So it's a little football right there in right ascension. This is at 200 though, guys. That's at 200 zoom. And you pull it back, it looks a little bit better, of course. But at 200 you could see there's a little bit of football stars. And so that's it there. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it's got real potential, and as you can see, I don't see any real spikes on any of those stars. And the one thing I noticed, when you're on a really bright star, those spikes actually help, because it works like a focusing mask. When you're focused, they tighten up, and it produces a very similar effect to a focusing mask. So it kind of makes it a little easier to focus with it. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. I'm pretty much purchased it for visual work, to be honest with you, but it looks like it's got some real good imaging potential too, so cool. Alright, well, thanks for tuning in to Dakota Starry Night's Workshop, and if you like what you see here, give us a thumbs up. Clear skies. See you the next time.